Happy Thursday, y'all. Loaded Wraps is back. It's been a long time. Canelo versus Crawford. A lot to talk about over a couple days. Again, I apologize for being absent for like a year. I'm back and going to do some videos and analysis, whatnot, pretty regularly moving forward. Just gonna shoot the shit a little bit, talk fights, talk about the card maybe. We'll see. If I'm on long enough, I might review some previous fights. Something I've been trying to organize is kind of reviewing like the last 5 fights, etc., right, of each fighter, big fights. Adds to the analysis, adds to some supporting arguments and whatnot when it comes to the fight game. You can catch me on BoxingScene as well. I'm on X. I like to talk fighting. I like to talk fights. I like to talk about the fight game. Less about the drama, less about the theatrics a little bit, but I do my thing. You can catch me in a gym across the country, still active out there. So, initial thoughts, I see a lot of people always want to make it about, let's talk about some of the general run-of-the-mill narratives that would accompany any similar fight under similar circumstances, right? Something about me is, there are two things you hear a lot, right? Some things I don't give credence to. A lot of people like to write off a guy who moves up to make a challenge, and that's an area where I kind of disagree with most people. I don't necessarily favor somebody who is moving up from what some would consider their natural weight, right? It's just not how. I've been. I never went pro, but I've been in the fight game for a while, not just as a student in the ring, but out of it, and it's. I think it's overblown. Now, yes, at the highest level, the minutia makes a difference, right? It does. It can, right? Assuming all else is equal, yes, right? What's a good example of this? Juan Manuel Marquez versus Floyd Mayweather, right? A situation where size matters, not because size matters in and of itself, but there's nowhere else that, Juan Manuel Marquez had a real edge going into the fight, right? Very rare, in my opinion, very rare that you would consider Juan Manuel Marquez an underdog, right? In that fight, he was an underdog. But to me, was an underdog because of the division discrepancy. He's an underdog because Floyd is a top 20 fighter all time, right? And that's being conservative. Most people would consider him top 10. I consider him a top 10 fighter. But when somebody is that complete, right? When somebody brings that much to the table, every otherwise small, difference there can be very significant, right? Because again, there are not a whole lot of things that were going into his favor into that fight. And he's a complete fighter, right? He's an elite fighter, one of the best combination punchers that ever lived, in my opinion. But Floyd doesn't have a lot of weaknesses. He's got a few, right? I'll touch into what I consider the chinks in his armor some other time. But just as an example, right, where you can go in prepared, ready to do everything right, really fight a good fight, but right, if you're if what you bring doesn't really counter or cancel out or overcome what they have, then it can end up becoming a war of attrition, and the very small things can make a difference, right? That little bit of range that you have. If you have more skill than a guy, then you can take that away, right? You can take that tool away. So anyways, where am I going with all this, right? So I don't think, I'm not one of those people off the bat, right, who's going to say, well, Crawford's at a big disadvantage because he's moving up. I don't buy that, right? I don't buy that at all. I've heard some other I've read some crazy shit out there. I don't know if that, some people might say he took a dive if he loses. Uh, I don't buy, Crawford's not that type of fighter to me. What I will say, what I will think, and, I won't let this, I am biased, uh, but um, I would be surprised and disappointed if Canelo got a gift decision. And I say that, and those of you from the forums who know me, uh, with full transparency, that I'm someone who believes that not all Canelo's victories are deserved. But, I think Crawford brings a lot to the table. I don't think he's just here to pad resumes, right? But I've said that about other fighters too, and they've lost, right, to Canelo, against Canelo. So, so I'm not one to buy into a lot of these comment arguments or basically arguments that are going to set up predicting the outcome. To me, that's lazy, right? To me, there's a lot more that goes into a fight than. Right here, right, and I'm on an SB right now. This guy's trying to say that the Floyd fight was fixed. The Floyd fight wasn't fixed. Canelo got outboxed, right? We can say whatever we want about the timing of that fight, but let's be honest. Like most fighters will take a fight when it's advantageous to them. Yes, there's a lot of fighters who take a fight that can be considered risky, but generally that risk is being taken by the guy who's up and coming, right? If you're established, there's less of a reason for you to take a risk, right? And that goes for most fighters. I don't think that that's a coward move. I think that that's a smart move, right? It is prize fighting, right? So, I don't believe in protecting a record per se, but if you're the A side, then you've got the leverage, right? Oscar did it when he was at peak. But when he was coming up, he fought who he needed to fight when he could fight them. And I think that to me is significant. So, we'll see. We'll see, right? What are some of the... Let's peruse the forums real quick. What's going on out here? Changing the topic slightly for a couple minutes. Mayweather named best boxer of the century. I'll give it to him. Who's on this list? Manny Pacquiao, B-Hops, Usyk, Canelo, Andre Ward, Crawford. Andre Ward. Look, I'm from the Bay Area. Andre Ward doesn't need to be on this list, guys. Come on now. Nobody outside of Oakland knows Andre Ward. I don't mean that as a diss, Andre. It's a small world, and this may get back to you, but you didn't have the charisma, even if you had the skill set, right? So I don't know. Well deserved. Beating out Manny and B-Hop, I would say that's pretty good, right? I think you can argue. I think it can be argued for Manny. He transcended the sport, right? As people like to say, he did. But he also took some losses he didn't need to take at the end, I would say. Sorry, I'm responding to some clownery here. There's always going to be a lot of bias between Manny and Floyd, right? That's just the way it goes. It's like, Giants, Dodgers, Lakers, Warriors, Niners, Cowboys, Barca, Real Madrid, right? It's just one of those things, right? Whatever, cool. That's a cool award. Let's move on, right? I get it. I get it. No, I mean, I, Manny or Floyd could have won that. I'm not complaining about Floyd. I think he ended his career stellarly. There's a couple fights I would have taken if I was him. I'm not him. So there's only so much I can say, but I'm never gonna jump on the he ran bandwagon. Just not strong enough evidence behind that, right? Here's the other thing a lot of people don't understand about Floyd. Floyd's a warrior. He was past tense because he's retired, not because I have a different outlook on the end of his career. If you're really familiar with how he fights, who he fought throughout his whole career, if you actually analyze his fights, and if you speak to anyone who's been in the gym with him, I mean, there's no questioning his heart. A couple other things while we're bouncing around. Other topics outside of the Canelo fight. So interesting topic here, right? Like let's fix boxing in America with organizational development. I mean, it won't happen, right? I mean, the problems with boxing globally, one, there's competition that there used to not as strong competition as there used to be, right? UFC, other niche versions of combat sports that stem from one or the other. But even beyond that, right? I mean, you're competing with football, real football, for those of you in the UK, globally, right? And then in the US, you compete with all the US sports, right? American football, basketball, baseball, and other nonsense out there too, right? Tennis, not hating on tennis, but I mean, I'm just saying. I mean, not going to happen and won't change the landscape in any meaningful way. It's about the fact that the politics and corruption, and the fragmentation of it's just reality, for boxing to ever come back as the golden sport, right? A lot would have to change, not just within boxing, but across the global sports landscape. But really the main issue, I mean, there's a lot of corruption in boxing. Anyone who denies that is very naive. But beyond that, right? Governing bodies, like there's just too many governing bodies, there's too many belts, there's too many championships, and again, it's politics, it's corruption, it's self-interest, right? But nobody with enough power really has a roadmap that addresses like global resurgence. You can organize whatever you want within the US as far as development, but that would at best improve national production, right? Whether it's for titles or it's for it's not even an Olympic sport anymore moving forward, right? But essentially, yeah, World Series of Boxing, something like that, right? I mean, we're a long, I think the glory days are forever gone. I don't mean to be pessimistic, but the sport's hanging by a thread because a lot of us are passionate, diehard fight fans, or we're the last of the generations who were. But I don't think the outlook is that positive in the long term. That said, we'll enjoy it while we can, and some of us stay in the gym, right? I mean, it could die as a professional sport. That's not going to stop us who hit the gym up, right? Regardless. But topic for another day. Let's bounce back, right? I mean, this is really meant to be about Canelo Alvarez and Terence Crawford, right? Paul Williams had some commentary on a supposed fight that never happened. yeah, so I kind of heard a little bit about this at one point in time, right? He got in an accident where, you know, basically he got injured, right? And he wasn't able to fight Canelo at a different time. I think at the time, this probably would have been a really good fight. My memory escapes me. I want to say it's someone like Margarito, but somebody beat Paul's ass, right? And after that, he was never the same, right? Uh, or am I wrong? I don't know. Am I talking out of my ass right now? Um, or did he get injured in the accident? I could be way off right now. I swear this fight didn't happen. He recovered and he ended up getting his shit pushed in and was never the same. But I could be misrecalling things. Um, Regardless, right? Paul Williams at one point was a pretty big force in the sport. A lot of people said that people ducked him. I don't know about that, but it would have been a good fight before, when he was at his peak in the sport. I think it would have been a good fight. He probably beats Canelo back then. I don't know. I'd have to think about that more. I've never been super big on Paul Williams, but I will admit that he definitely knew how to bang. He had some speed. He had some mobility. Not an easy guy at the time. So what was his take on Crawford? Uh, hmm. Looks like he favors Canelo. Uh, yeah, he goes with Canelo. So he doesn't think that Crawford can sit there banging it out with him. You know, I disagree with his take here. I don't think that Crawford's only chance is to brawl him. I really don't. I also think Crawford has the skill set to outbox him uh, by a relatively good margin. I think I'm of the opinion that Canelo's oversold in more than one way, right? To me, he'll always still be a puncher, relatively flat-footed. He's got a little bit more movement. He's added more tools to his tool bag through his career, but still very much see him from an archetype standpoint and from a limitation standpoint as the same fighter, I first saw fight Lara and way back in the day. So, size could play a factor. I'm not saying it's irrelevant. Uh, but a guy like Crawford, in my opinion, has the skill set, the IQ, uh, the speed, the experience to, to not get mauled, right? Even when he's coming in and out. So, I don't know. I don't agree with Paul Williams on that. I don't know if he's being a little bit, I don't know, politically correct, maybe to say a certain way, but uh, I don't know. The Netflix doc, I'm not watching it. I'm not just gonna give Netflix my attention. I'll watch the fight, but I don't need to watch it to know that it's no HBO production, right? So yeah, I'm hating on Netflix. But it's also a sign of where things have, how far we've fallen, right? I mean, yes, for all of Netflix success, whatever, right? But still, for fights to be free streamed, for major fights to be free streamed on Netflix, I mean, come on, guys. You know, it's because we can't hold down a pay-per-view for the fight, right? I mean, that's just the reality of it, right? And you can be against the PPV model all you want, but, it's been a lifeline for major fights for decades, was. So, I don't know. I don't think it's a good look, but you got to do what you got to do, right? Um, what next? What next? What else? A fight can go many different ways. It can have many different outcomes. You know, my take today, I could change tomorrow, my opinion, honestly, but I think he has the tools not just to survive, but to thrive. I do. I really do. Uh, we'll see, though, right? I mean, a lot can happen over a few days. Not just about how I feel about it, but just news that comes out. How's he looking? How are they looking? How are they feeling? What's the weigh-in like? Uh, you know, yeah, this is a shitty pull here, man. NSB's falling hard, man. Um, Usyk has had a great career, fantastic career. I think even having a chance to beat Fury, I'm very high on Fury. Even having a chance to beat Fury is commendable, but I felt that way going into that fight, even though I didn't expect the results. Um, he's had a great career. He's successfully crossed over sports, uh, but legacy and resume wise, we can't put him in the same conversation as Floyd. We just can't. Uh, Longevity, quality of opponents, not Usyk's fault, but doesn't mean that it doesn't count. Um, Titles won. I mean, it would be a closer to me. It would be a closer comparison if we didn't compare resumes and we compared skill sets, because Usyk's a pretty complete fighter. Yeah, I won't say he's a better boxer than Floyd, but I think that's a closer argument than comparing their legacy or resume. If we make it about legacy and resume, there's no comparison in that regard. Um, yeah. What else? What else? Let's see. I don't know if I'm gonna watch a fight tonight, but I may do this tomorrow. I may have a pretty long stream session tomorrow. Maybe I'll stream a fight of each of them. Um, See if it stimulates my opinion one way or the other. Let's see what else is going on over here. Um, the Inui fight should be good. That's gonna be on. See, I don't know, man. Facebook. I can't do it, guys. I'm gonna have to find another way. Uh, Frank Warren trying to push the Shiraz fight. Be an interesting fight. People are trying to push Jake Paul narratives. I'll never do a Jake Paul fight here, guys. I'm letting you know right now. I don't respect him as a fighter. I don't consider him a boxer. I'd bet on myself if I got in the ring with him. Straight up. I mean, the guy, he's he may generate in his fights, but I don't think he's doing the sport any favors at all. Um, Bivol, Beterbiev for sure. Bigger fights. Benavides. Um, yeah, I don't know. I think there's better fights, but I mean, that's how it works, right? Everybody wants to push their guy into the ring with a bigger name because that's how careers are built. That's just how it works. What else here? I don't know. We went through Paul Williams' thoughts. The Floyd Mayweather best fighter of the century. Shiraz rumors. The next Joseph Parker fight should be pretty interesting. Let's see. I don't blame Floyd for it, and I think that if he did take some more risky fights, that his record could be different. Heck, I could see him. I could see Oscar and Maidana both getting nods against him, and I wouldn't complain about it. In fact, I've scored for it. But this modern trend, and I'll say modern meaning like over the last 20 years, this modern trend of like fans just completely dropping your rating or writing you off as an elite fighter because you take a L, shit is absurd. I mean, before Floyd, even including him, right? I mean, 99% of all fighters are going to take an L, right? At some point or another. This idea that, oh, you took an L, your stock just drops tremendously. It shouldn't, right? And if it does, then you're probably overhyped to begin with, right? If you prove yourself against quality opposition and you beat them, then you deserve the acknowledgement for being undefeated, right? But it's the guys that come up, these 20-0 contender type guys who, 15 of their 20 fights are super protected and they've got 5 like journeymen. Those are the guys where it's like, what are you hyping that guy up for? I mean, maybe he's got it, right? But, then you see people like, oh, they're ducking him. Like, nobody's ducking that guy, right? I mean, every once in a millennia, you'll get like a Mike Tyson type guy who, he might strike legit fear in people as he's coming up. But nah, I mean, especially today, back in the day, it was more acceptable, I guess, to say it that way, to take risks as established champions or to put your title on the line. If you go real back, to the old days, it was common for champions to fight often. It's only a more modern approach where like a guy's like, yeah, I'll fight once a year. Can you imagine once a year? Like the luxury that provides you. And then you've just got that whole year to, train, rest, recover, whatever, study, set up another fight. There was times when guys were fighting once a month, pros, champions, right? So I don't know. But yeah, this whole idea that I'm going to ride my horse until he takes a loss and then I'm ditching him. I mean, you guys aren't real fans. You know what I mean? You got to be, if you're going to ride with your guy, you got to ride with him through thick and thin. A, right? B, don't be so harsh on a guy because he takes an L. Like in most fights that happen, period, one's gonna win, one's gonna lose. It's how it works, right? I mean, boxing is a chess match. So, again, right? If you're undefeated and you've actually fought some people, some hard people, then you deserve the accolades. And again, if you're undefeated but you're fighting street sweepers and shoe shiners, then we're going to call it out as such, right? But again, and you can also be a guy with 5 to 6, 7 L's, but you can be elite. You can be top, right? It depends on who you lost to, what were the circumstances, what you've done since then, what you look like since then, what's the current state of you as a fighter, and what have you done through your history as a fighter to support, to put it together, right? It's both, right? It's what are you doing today, but also what have you done? It's not one or the other. That's so yeah, day, 2 days away, we'll see what we do tomorrow. Let me jump on BoxRec for a second. Should be my. They make you log in now, huh? That's crazy. Yeah, not a whole lot more to add right now specifically. Maybe I'll do a little bit more a little bit later this evening. Tomorrow I'm going to have a longer stream. I mean, it's the day before the fight. So, yeah, I'll try and maybe watch one fight of each tomorrow. Maybe I'll go over both of their last fights tomorrow, just for shits and giggles, right? Then we'll give a prediction. And it's time to get hyped. Not hyped so much because, well, I think it'll be a good fight. Let's be real. Sorry, just trying to reset my box rack. It should be an interesting fight. I mean, I'm excited because personally, I'm back to streaming, back to the fight game. You know, I've been pretty spotty and unreliable coming out of the pandemic. Boxing took a hiatus during the pandemic. I took a hiatus, and it was just harder than perceived getting back into the swing of things because I just was into other things at the time, both related to work and not. So again, I definitely apologize for all that. BoxRec's pound for pound list, right? Usyk, Inoue, Bivol, Beterbiev, Canelo, Rodriguez, Nakatani, sorry, Benavidez, Shakur Stevenson. I see all kinds of problems with this list. Let's be real, but today's not the day for that. Let's see. I'll say Usyk deserves it. I mean, but I also rate any win over Tyson Fury very highly. Beyond that, though, I'm not a huge fan of that list. Crawford gives up a little bit of height. 74. I remember that fight with Kell Brook. 74 and... and 70. See, he has a reach advantage. I didn't realize Canelo's this short. Crawford also has a height advantage. I should have known that. We can maybe watch the skull fight tomorrow. Or we could watch the Bivol fight. It's a few years back though, right? I mean, we can watch it from the last legit loss you took perspective, but I think I'd want to watch a more recent fight for Canelo tomorrow, maybe. Uh, It'll be an interesting fight to me. It will. Yeah, and the Madrimov fight. We can watch the Madrimov fight tomorrow. All right, so that might be the plan. It's interesting though. It's interesting that he has both the height and the reach advantage, which again, similar to weight, it's not something I put an enormous amount of stock into. I think it could be relevant in a very close fight. The style definitely has a lot to do with it as well. Um, but it should be interesting. It should be interesting. All right, I'll come back to BoxRec later. I'll be wrapping up though. Just wanted to get back into the swing of things, get back in the mood, just see what people had to say around online, the forums, X, etc. Yeah, just let the few people that know I'm on here, let them know I'm back into the swing of things. I'll be on tomorrow. I'll review both last fights and give a prediction. I'll try and do the weigh-in. We'll see, depending on timing. I will do a post-fight analysis for sure. And then I will do, not next week, but the week after, I'll start to do some, as I started, right? Just doing some older fight analyses, sit down and score some stuff and kind of explain what I see, how I read things, and just my opinions on, the flow of fights, the results, and the landscape of the sport. Really, that's more or less it tonight. Just want to see if there's any other comments that are interesting. Not really. Let's see. Oh, this guy's hitting me up here. Yeah. I mean, anyone who thinks that the Canelo Floyd fight was fixed is I think doesn't understand that this isn't a sport for you, my guy. Yeah, a lot of people, I don't know. I think it's just a lazy take, right? It's a lazy take to me, right? If you're just going to automatically give the nod to the quote unquote bigger guy, and he's not even bigger by all measure, right? Just automatically just assume, oh, the guy moving up's at a huge disadvantage. I mean, we're not talking about Manny jumping 4 divisions, right? I mean, we're talking about maybe 1 or 2 divisions for a guy who's actually taller and longer than you, and who probably, I mean, I can't imagine it'll be more than like 5 pounds difference on fight night. I could be wrong. We'll see. We'll see what the weigh-in says, and or literal fight night. After rehydration and all. But even if it was the case, right? Even in Manny's case, right? It's lazy. It's a lazy take to me. You can do better, right? It's like in another team sport, someone saying, "Oh, you play at home, your favorite." I mean, there's something to that, but it's not like, oh, you play away, you're bound for the L. Like that's definitely That's not how any sport works. Let's be honest. So we'll see. I think it'll be an interesting fight. Again, like I've said before, I am biased, right? I think that Canelo's walked away with a few wins in the win column he didn't deserve, and he never gave those guys a second chance to redemption. Most of them, Golovkin he did, but I'm not generally not a fan of that. If there's one thing that'll get me to root against you, it's getting gifts in fights that I really don't think you deserve. Other than that, may the best man win, right? I mean, it'll be interesting. It'll be an interesting fight. And I'm a big believer of styles make fights, and I think the styles here do lend themselves. Canelo's there to get hit enough. He also comes forward enough. He's not tentative, and Crawford's very much the same way. He's just a little bit more slick. He's a southpaw. He's more prone to boxing you, but he's not afraid to get his hands dirty. He's not afraid to step into the fire and get burnt. So we'll see. And he hasn't lost yet, right? So again, that doesn't always mean something, but I can't say that he's flat out ducked anyone egregiously, right? So I think in this case it kind of speaks for itself. We'll see what Saturday brings, but again, like I said, I'll be on tomorrow. We'll try and do the last two fights of each. I'll give my prediction, and we'll get hyped. And then Saturday I'll be on for the post fight. And let's keep the boat afloat, right? There's I feel we're few and far between who are still absolutely dedicated to this sport and who love it with all our heart. And I have a much smaller platform than a lot of those other people out there right now, but it's all good. I'm here to hold it down, spread love, spread knowledge, critique what I got to critique, and just keep it 100 all the way. Keep it nonstop boxing, right? So everyone enjoy your night, and